I would argue that I probably have the largest one-man money management firm.
Are you able to share how much you are managing now, or even if it's in
About $200 million.
Really?
I never listened to anybody. I wasn't looking to make 10% a year. I was looking to make 10% a day. Because I have this thing that nobody has, almost every time I make money, I'm making enemies. And I'm not trying to say you're stupid. It's simply about, hey, everybody's short, therefore I'm going long. I can remember being 38 years old, living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids and barely being able to put food on the table, even though I was doing well in the trading. It's very, very difficult, especially mentally. The hardest thing, you're talking about single-digit percentage people. And I know you're gonna be the one because you're the special one. I get that. To make 100%, that's not building a track record. That's not a real track record. You can make 100%, but you're probably also gonna lose 80%. That's not building a real track record. Trading is not some easy road to riches. There's a reason why the best traders are so rich.
Number one podcast in the trading space, the fastest growing, and that's thanks to every single one of you. Welcome everyone back to the Words of Rizdom podcast. We're back once again, still the number one trading podcast in the world, the fastest growing. That's thanks to all of you and our incredible guests. Talking of which, we have a 30-year trading veteran with us today, Jason Shapiro. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. I know we've spoken a very long time ago as the podcast was still growing, but we just were too far apart and I wanted to do this in person. So it's absolutely a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And I know we're going to go into more of your backstory, talking of which, I know you were highlighted in the New Market Wizards book. I know that during your time as a trader, you've had, I think it was 20, if I'm not mistaken, 20 years without a losing year, which is absolutely incredible. And if I'm not mistaken, your time at Garrison, you were part of taking their fund from 50 million to over 600 million as well.
I wasn't responsible for that. They were, but
Yeah.
My assets under management there grew like that because they were growing.
Of course. Yeah. And where could we begin? So what was it about trading that really took your eye in the beginning?
I think the idea that I was not a very good employee. I think I've been fired from every job I've ever had.
Wow.
And in fact, my son recently, he works for a big company and he got a promotion. And I was like, I've never gotten a promotion in my life. So being that kind of person, I needed to find something where those skills weren't really necessary as much. The skills of getting along with people and bosses and coworkers and all that, which I just wasn't good at. So trading, was one of those things that, at least it seemed when I was a young kid, that if you could make money trading, well, then that's all that you really needed to do, which is not entirely true, but at least it's somewhat true. So that kind of drew me to it, And then as I read about it and started to learn about it, it seemed as though I could make my personality work in making money trading, and that being very contrarian, you can make work in the markets, right? So I like that idea. It took a long time to figure out how to do that. But I like that idea. And I just like the idea that there's kind of not a lot of BS, there's P and there's L, and you don't have to argue with people. I can argue with people about whether I think the market's going up or down, and they can argue and they might make a better argument than me. But at the end of the day, if I'm long and it goes up, or if I'm short and it goes down, well, then the argument's over. I didn't have to prove anything to anybody, right? They can win the argument, but so what? Whereas I find in other parts of life, that's not necessarily true. I'm the guy at a party that, that takes the other side of what everybody says anyway. Mm. So like if people, let's say, like a movie, and I'm sitting there and I say, I thought the movie was crap, but they all like it. Well, majority is going to rule and I'm going to look like the jerk. I can't prove that movie was crap, right? Whereas in the market, like I say, it proves itself. So that all kind of attracted me.
It's so interesting to hear, especially as you mentioned, like going into trading, the main reason was because you were a bad employee, which is interesting because I get to meet a lot of young traders who are starting to get into trading nowadays. And it's a similar mindset in one sense. In one sense, they say, what they say is, I'm not made to be an employee. Like, I'm not cut out for it. I'll start a job for a week, they'll quit because they're not cut out for it. Which I always found interesting, because I would always give them the sort of thought process of like, your work ethic or mindset isn't right in that regard, because to go into trading, you're going to need that work ethic at least. But as you're saying, it was the reason you started into trading. But you did also mention that it's not necessarily true as a trader. Like, how have things shaped as you got into trading? Was there any sort of shift in that mindset of?
I never got very much better at it. But, if you're going to work, let's say I worked at a pretty large hedge fund, there's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot of money involved. And where there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of politics involved. So even though I was making steady money there, there were still some issues because there were politics involved. And, with me, and especially the way A, I think, and B, I trade, it's very difficult to make friends, because I'm essentially, when everybody's saying, hey, the market's going down, I'm saying it's going up. And that's one thing. But the other thing is, if I end up being, God forbid, I end up being right, yeah, I make money, but everybody else looks like a fool, right? Including the boss, the CIO, whoever, right? The CIO is sitting in the meeting, pounding the table, the market's going down, and I'm saying the market's going up. Well, he's the guy with the political power in the firm, right? And so he's not going to fire me if I make money, but I'm not making any friends. And by definition, almost every time I make money, I'm making enemies, because I'm doing the opposite of them, and it makes them look stupid. And I'm not trying to say you're stupid. It's not about that to me, right? It's simply about, hey, everybody's short, therefore I'm going long. So therefore, and it doesn't always work, but when it does, people have a tendency, when their ego is on the line, get angry. And most of the time, people's egos are on the line, especially in big organizations, right? So that wasn't that great. As a money manager, that runs my own firm, I did have to raise money, which also takes a certain personality type, which I didn't necessarily have. But fortunately for me, after, God knows, 20 years of raising money, it got to a point where my track record was long enough. And fortunately, I didn't plan this in the beginning. I traded based on how I thought the market worked and how I thought I could make money. But because I'm so opposite of everybody, my return stream tends to have negative correlation to just about everything else out there. And institutional firms need that in their portfolio, right? They're looking for 0 to negative correlation return streams with positive return expectations. And it's very hard to find that. It's very hard to find a true negatively correlated return stream with a positive return expectation. So as I built up a long enough track record and the numbers proved to be able to do that, I was able to raise money. And I get along very well with my clients. But look, there are plenty of people who would never give me money. And that's okay, because I don't accept new investors now anyway. It took me a long time to have the type of clients that were a good fit for me. At first, I started the firm and I wanted to be, the next big shot, and hired a bunch of people and had a big expense base and all that. And I had to take in any money I could get. And that ended up attracting some of what I would call the wrong type of client. But now I'm a one-man operation. I have very low expenses. And therefore I can be choosy about the clients I have. And the clients that I have fully understand or are on board as to why they have money with me, which is, when everything else in their portfolio is losing money, I should make money. And hopefully when everything is making money, I shouldn't lose that much. And therefore we're going to push out their efficient frontier on their return stream.
Where did that stem from? That mindset of sort of going against everyone else. Is that something you developed? Or is that something kind of that was always?
I think my mom must have dropped me or something like that when I was a baby, because I've been like that since I don't know. I really don't know where it developed. Just being a stubborn, egotistical brat, basically, as a kid, is where that developed. I never listened to anybody. Adults, teachers. I just had this attitude when I was a kid. I didn't know any better. If I could go back, I probably would have done a little bit differently. But as a kid, I didn't know any better. I just didn't want to listen to anybody. So it became like this very contrarian thing. And then as you look through life, as you get older and you're looking through life through that lens, you start to notice that people, especially when they act in groups, tend to make stupid decisions, you know? So how can you benefit off of that? It's difficult. But in the market, you can benefit off of that, because if all they're acting in a group and that's going to end up being a stupid decision, you just go the opposite way, and their stupid decision can be your good decision. I'm not sitting here trying to be the smartest person out there. I'm not sitting here trying to forecast the market better than anybody else, because I don't think that that's possible, right? But I'm letting them forecast for me, right? And when they all are forecasting the same thing, I find it's good to go the other way. So that's really all I do. I try to keep it as simple as that.
I find it fascinating because it is something so different. Well, I guess it's kind of the foundation of it, is that it is different. But as you came into trading, was that the first thing you were doing?
No. I think when I came into trading, I was just like pretty much probably everybody that's listening to this, right? At the time I started, I was in like 22 years old. I was living in Hong Kong.
Oh.
And Hong Kong was in a bull market, and I was a young kid. I had a decent job. My job actually paid for my housing. So I basically had discretionary income. So what better to do as a 22-year-old kid with discretionary income in a bull market than to play the game, you know what I mean? And so I played the game, and I started doing it, and, leveraging what we all do, right? I wasn't looking to make 10% a year. I was looking to make 10% a day, right? And went through what everybody goes through, a huge bull market. I was leveraging in, and I ran my account up to some ridiculous number, bought me a sports car, and, was ready to take over the world. And then the bull market ended, and I couldn't afford the parking space for my sports car, and that's how it all started. And then I didn't learn yet. That was about a 3-year process. And then I picked it up from there, started again, and was doing stuff. And finally, after about 10 years, I at that point, I was doing what a lot of people do. I was reading a lot of books about trading, technical analysis, fundamental analysis, trading psychology. I was reading everything I can get a hold of. And I was good in that I was keeping a journal, a trading journal, which I think is extremely important. And after about 10 years of this, I was right where I started. Up, down, which is what most people go through. And I finally was like, at this point now, I'm almost 30, so I guess it was about 8 years. I'm getting married, I'm having a child, and I'm like, this is not going to work. So what am I going to do? And I was kind of stuck at that point, in a way, in the trading game, because I've been doing it so long. What was I going to do now? It's too late to go to medical school or something like that, So I sat down with my journal, and I really tried to go through what was working, not what worked once, but what was working over time. I broke my trade down into type of trades. Which ones were really working over time and which ones weren't, and tried to obviously eliminate the ones that weren't and focus on the ones that were. And that is how I slowly started to build my process.
It's fascinating, especially with the journaling aspect. Like, in terms of the journaling, what was it? As you said, you split it into sort of playbooks, like different trades. What was it that sort of stood out to you through that data? And I'm guessing at the time it was more, was it like a handwritten journal, or was it?
Yeah, typed maybe, but handwritten and typed, yeah. What stood out to me was that...
Let's take a break for a minute there, guys, because I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Alpha Capital. Now, without our sponsors, it's not possible for us to host such incredible podcasts around the world and get the level of guests that we are getting. So again, thanks to Alpha Capital for sponsoring the podcast. Now, Alpha Capital is one of the best prop firms in the industry. So far, this year alone, they have done over $50 million in payouts, which is absolutely incredible. They have the very best infrastructure in place for longevity, from an in-house broker, so they can offer the very best trading conditions and platforms that all traders love to use. They're still able to offer services to the US as well, so the US traders can still trade with them on particular platforms. They have institutional experience, so they know how to manage a prop firm correctly and have such an incredible team on hand. On top of which, they have both a pro and swing plan. So depending on your style and strategy, you can choose which one is best for you. Now you can use and get the highest discount available at anywhere using Riz25. So that's RIZ25 for 25% off all challenges. The link's in the description below. So let's get back to the episode.
This sort of contrarian process type of thing worked when done in a disciplined way. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And that things like, for me at least, trading breakouts, technical analysis, that type of stuff really was not working for me over time. I put on some good trades doing that, but over time was not working for me. For whatever reason, maybe I wasn't as disciplined with those or maybe whatever, but those weren't working for me. So I tried to just focus on what was working for me and really try to improve upon that as well.
Through your experience, how important is journaling? Like, I know there's a ton of traders who don't journal at all.
I think it's unbelievably important. To this day, I mean, like I have this web page now that people join, and I send a newsletter out every Sunday, but all the newsletter is my notes about here's what I have to set up for, and it's what I've been doing for myself for 25 years. That's all my newsletter is, what I was doing for myself for 25 years. Here's the trades that are set up. Here's the circumstances under which I will take that trade. Here's how I plan to size it. Here's what I'm looking for, that. So I don't take full journals anymore because I only do one type of trade now, so it's not really worth that. But I still do this weekly thing, whether it be for my newsletter. If I didn't have this, I'd be doing it for myself, as I always did. So I think it's extremely important, and it's hard. The thing about it is, especially if you're new and even if you're not, you get to go back and look, right? And you can't go back and build your journal because you forget what you were thinking a year ago today, right? So you can't go back. So the sooner you start doing that, the more advantageous it's going to be. And most people aren't going to do it. You know what I mean? Hey, what do I care? I come in, this thing's going to break out. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to ride it. Okay. But I will say that I think it's extremely important to have your thought process behind what you were doing so that you can go back and start to figure out what wasn't working for you. Look, just eliminating what wasn't working for you is going to help you, right? Much less focusing on what is and then making that better. But you won't know that, in all honesty, unless you're writing down your thoughts at the time, you know, because you're going to go back and be like, oh yeah, 6 months ago, well, why did I make that trade? Oh, because this. But you don't really know if that's what you were thinking. If you do it the time up, even at the end of the day, then you really will have a good record of what you were thinking, and you'll be able to go back and figure that out. I still go back at the end of every half year, and I look at all my trades, and even though I'm only trading one process, you know, I still, through it all, sometimes get off process or miss something, or, you know, even the trades I miss, you know, I go back and I try to review all that stuff and see where I screwed up, where I wasn't on process, what I missed and why, and try to improve all the time.
Would you say that's the only way to keep your edge and stay on form as a trader?
I think it certainly helps. It definitely helps a lot.
Because, as I said, like a lot of traders I found who aren't journaling usually also aren't profitable at this stage. And it's, as you say, it's like you're not going to remember 6 months ago, a year ago. And it's a case where I would say personally, it's the laziness. It's the excitement in trading is there. And I have a tweet actually that you've made that we'll read out later, which I would love to hear your thoughts on, expand on more. But it's like the excitement isn't in journaling or collecting the data or doing that necessary work. And that's why a lot of people just tend to say, oh, I don't need to, you know, I just focus on the trading aspect. And I think it's very unfortunate because a lot of people have the skill set. I think people have the drive, but then it's those little things. Well, they're quite big, obviously, overall, but it's the little work that just needs to be done that will make a big difference. And going back to what you said, though, in terms of just getting rid of the things that aren't working for you, would you say that's like one of the first steps, really?
Absolutely.
Because it's not like you're taking more trades to make more money. You're actually making more money just by removing those losses.
That's right. Why not, right? Whatever helps, you know? Mm-hmm. I think that what you're saying is important because the excitement of trading. You want to be a profitable trader over time, the first thing you got to do is get over that, right? I understand. I was there. I was young. I loved it. It was exciting. We woke up every morning ready to go, and you know what I mean? And so you can make it exciting, but it shouldn't be exciting. It should be boring, you know? If you're in this, and I say this to people all the time, you have to make a choice. Are you doing this for enjoyment as a hobby? And if you are, then hey, go for it, you know? are you doing this really to make money over time? And if you're doing it as a hobby, I like to say, how many hobbies do you have that you make money off of? Probably not too many, right? I have hobbies. I don't make money off of any of them. I spend money on them. I play guitar. I got to buy an amp. I got to buy a guitar. I got to pay a guitar teacher. I don't make, even if I got a gig, it pays me like $100 for the night or something like that. Uh, Hobbies don't make you money, right? You want to, and this particular thing is extremely difficult. I understand in the bull market, you made a bunch of money. It's easy. Everyone's a genius in a bull market, okay? But it's not always a bull market. And if you're going to lose all that money when it's not a bull market, then it's a terrible thing. And that's usually it's what it took me. It's usually what it's going to take people to turn it around, right? They're going to have to go through that. They're not going to say, oh, yeah, Shapiro's right. They're never going to believe I'm right until they go through it. I didn't believe anybody was right. I thought I was going to be the next, George Soros, right? And it turned out I had a lot to learn. But that's why journaling is important, because then you can go back at that point and say, okay, what was I doing wrong and what could I have done better? But the point is, it's very, very difficult. This is especially mentally the hardest thing you can do. You're talking about single-digit percentage people make money over time doing this. And I know you're going to be the one because you're the special one. I get that, but you're not. So therefore, you have to be extremely disciplined about all this. If you think you're just going to get away with this and this is just going to be free money and all that, you're going to find out that it's not. And so you have to be very disciplined about all. I sat on a panel one time and with this other guy who was a real quant type of guy, did back testing and this testing and that testing. And I've done some of that stuff, but I've always had to hire people. I'm not a programmer, right? But this guy was. And we were on this panel, we were talking about this. And one guy raised his hand and said, I don't know how to program. So I don't know how to back test. So, and this programmer guy looked at him and he said, it sounds like what you're saying to me is that you want to make money in the markets, but you don't want to do the work necessary to do that. And and this was a kid. This kid was like 26 years old. And I was like, damn. That's cold, but so true, right? And you got to know, man, like this shit is hard. And the worst part about this stuff is like you could go to work, you get a job, and you can kind of half-ass work, you know what I mean? As long as you don't get fired or whatever, you'll get your salary at the end of the week or the month or whatever it is, right? With this stuff, you can do all that work and you can lose money. That's what's so brutal about this business, right? You work your ass off hours and hours a day and end up not only not making money, but losing money. You got to realize that. So think about how hard that is. And therefore think about how you're going to be in the 5% of people that are going to make money over time doing this. It's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take a lot of discipline and it's going to take a lot of time.
As you mentioned earlier, like you had 8 years of being in that boom and bust cycle, the ups and downs. What in that time was there? I know you mentioned about like what else were you going to do? Go to medical school at this time,
Right.
But were there moments in that time where you really thought about like, is this for me? Am I cut out to do this?
There were, especially when I lost all my money more than once, right? But I don't know. This is what I wanted to do. I found it fascinating. And I thought that I could pull it off. I had known people that were doing well. I didn't think that they had any better skill set than I do. And I just felt like if I kept at it and if I learned and learned and learned that I could do it. And look, then I really started to get it and I started to have success with my returns. But I was still broke because I was trading my own money and I had now at this point 3 kids and, it takes a lot of money, you know what I mean? I can't put up all those great returns and it was very difficult for me to break into sort of the Wall Street arena because I didn't go to whatever, Wharton or Harvard or whatever it is. And so it took me years, you know what I mean? Look, people think it's all glamorous and all that stuff, but I can remember being 38 years old, living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids and barely being able to put food on the table, right? Even though I was doing well in the trading, right? And then finally, whatever, I kept pushing and I met some people and I caught a couple lucky breaks and and then I got a job at a pretty big hedge fund and got a lot of money under management and was able to put up the money, and then I started to actually make some money, thank God. And that's the glamour. People think like it's glamorous. No, you live such a great life. You work out of your house. You work for yourself. You manage all this money. You can make all this money. I'm like, I'm 56. I've been doing this since I was 22. You know what I mean? Like, it all seems like this great thing now, but talk to me when you're, 36 years old. And, I can specifically remember that my daughter was born and she was this cute little baby. And this was before cell phones. And we wanted to like make little home movies of her, and you buy those little like, movie, and they were like $900. I couldn't buy one. I couldn't afford a $900 camera, and that's sad, especially when people who were my friends, and in fact, people who had worked for me previously are sitting there, making $750,000, $1 million a year on Wall Street. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting here, a couple times I went to them and interviewed at their firms, at Morgan Stanley, at Bear Stearns. And every time I came out of it going, no, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how to get this. So, and eventually, like I say, a few lucky breaks and all that, and it ended up working out.
So during that time, you were trading your own capital, but was it a case because even though you were doing well and you essentially building your track record, it was just a case where it was on obviously smaller capital. So even if you were doing well, it necessarily couldn't allow you to have.
I mean, on $100,000, which I didn't even have that, but even $100,000, you make 20%. It's $20,000 with 3 kids. You know what I mean? Like that don't cut it, man. And trying to make 100%, you could probably live on $100,000 back then. You're not living like a king, but you're living. But to make 100%, that's not building a track record. That's not a real track record. You know what I mean? You can make 100%, but you're probably also going to lose 80%. That's not building a real track record. And I learned that wasn't going to work. And my goal was I wanted to build a real track record so that I could then become an institutional, hedge fund money manager. So I couldn't do that way.
What kept you disciplined though? Because during those moments, especially having the kids, the pressure, if you will, a lot of the time as well, the muscle memory, if you will, of the past, of making the mistakes of oversizing, etc. What kept you disciplined during those moments?
Well, I didn't want to do that again. And so I was trying not to live off of the capital that I was trading, which meant that I had to do some side jobs. My wife at the time had to go out and work, and we had to live very cheaply. And, because otherwise I was just going to go down the same cycle. Like how many times you go down, I had blown out my account 3 times. I wasn't going to do that again, no matter what. Right. So that was what kept me motivated to do that. What the goal was a certain thing. So I was going to try and do that goal.
Do you think discipline comes down to just making a choice?
I think it's a large part of it. Yeah. I think it's a large part of it. You're forced to be disciplined.
Yeah. Because most people are always looking for a hack, or they're looking for that secret code or key.
I understand that, and that's wonderful. I never found one. You got to do your own thing, right? And you got to learn your own lessons. I speak a lot about this stuff. I do videos. But the thing is, I have a Discord page, and these people actually pay a little bit of money to come and listen to me, and a lot of them still don't. A lot of them have come on and been like, exactly what you talk about is exactly what I've done before, which is why I'm here, to try and learn how to not do that. And some of them, we've been doing this about 3 years now, have really turned it around. It's been amazing to watch. I think some of them on there are doing better than I am, quite frankly, with the same idea of trading. Because I tend to get too tight now, right? I tend to be too risk averse, right? It's good to be in the middle, I think. But, I'm at a point in my life too where risk aversion and, where my life is and all that, I become more risk averse. So I actually see people doing this very similar to my trading now, and they're doing better than I am, which is wonderful. It's wonderful. So yeah, I think discipline is all about, to me, learning lessons, hopefully.
How important in terms of building a track record? Because nowadays we have a whole new generation of traders who are coming in, they don't have capital. So they're using either prop firms, less so I would say the traditional sense, more so now these prop firms that are allowing them to get funded. with like very small fee, pass some challenges, show some sort of use of profitability, and they're getting paid out that way. And a lot of people just aren't going down that track record route, you know? How important was it to you, or how important as a trader do you think it is to build a track record? Let's take a break for a minute there, guys, because I want to tell you about the best trading tool on the market, TradeZeller. The reason why TradeZeller is the #1 trading tool that every trader needs is because you can do backtesting, automated journaling, trade replay, in-depth analytics, and so much more. And the greatest part about TradeZeller is that it's all automated. All you have to do is connect your MT4 and MT5. It will pull all your data onto the dashboard. You can add playbooks. You can just add notes. You can add images from your trades, and you can get the insights that is necessary for you to progress as a trader. Now, TradeZeller is for absolutely everyone. Whether you're a crypto trader, whether you're a Forex trader, whether you trade prop firms, it is for absolutely everyone. And that is why thousands of traders have signed up using my link here through the podcast. Make sure you use the code RIZ10 for 10% off your monthly subscription, or WOR for 20% off your yearly subscription. The link is in the description below. And let's get back to the episode.
It depends what you're trying to do. You know, back when I was doing this, there weren't really so many prop firms like that. There was hedge funds were just really starting to blow up. I don't mean blow up in the bad way, blow up in the good way. So that was the way to go. And to do that, I felt that you really needed to build a track record. What I have found, I mean, listen, I stopped and I took about 1.5 years off and just went kind of into semi-retirement. And when I came back, the first place I went and traded for was a prop firm in New York, who are still my clients now. And I managed money. And what I found was that's an awesome life. You know, really, if you can make a good living doing that, there's nothing wrong with that. It's better than a hedge fund, because like these guys don't care. I don't ever go in the office. I've been in there twice in 7 years, right? You make money, they don't care. They pay you your payout. You're good. There's no politics. There's no bull crap. There's none of that. So if you can do that, I think that's a wonderful living. And if you don't want to do that, what I did was I took that, and then I took that track record along with my past track record, and I went out and I raised some other money, you know? So you can do that too if you want. But I think that what most people will find, or you can go and use that track record and get a job at one of these big hedge funds, you know? But I think what people will find is that there's nothing better than not dealing with all that other crap. You know, you might not make $10 million a year, but you can make a pretty damn good living at those prop firms. So why not just stick with that? It's a question of greed. You know, how much money do you really need? And what I've learned, again, something that a younger person is never going to get, but what I've learned as I've gotten older is you don't need that much money. You know, having a good amount of money is nice. But, you know, when I was 30, I wanted to be a billionaire, just like everybody else, you know. Now, at 56, I can raise money all day long, right? I have a really good track record, and I have a lot of money under management, and I have a process that a lot of these people need in their portfolio. But I don't want it because it's not worth the extra dollar anymore. Sure, can I go out and raise all that money and make however much money? Yeah, but I don't need that money. Like, you know, and I don't mean it's like, oh, I'm worth $100 million. I'm not worth $100 million, but I do have enough money that I can live comfortably, but it's not worth it to me. Maybe other people feel differently. I guess I'm just not, I have learned that money ain't that important. Once you get past a certain point, right? Clearly, when I was broke and I couldn't put food on my kids' table, money was important, right? But once you get past a certain point, the money doesn't add to your happiness. And there's been plenty of studies that have shown this, right? And what's the point? If you're not getting happier, then what's the point, right? So I think you can make a very good living managing. I know plenty of people at the prop firm that I work for. They make $700,000, $800,000 $100,000 a year, $1 million a year. If you can't be happy making $800,000 a year, then maybe you need to re-examine, you know, your life. You know, that's what I think.
That's true, because of course, like money is numbers, and numbers are infinite. So it's like, if you're not going to be happy at 800, where's the happiness level?
That's exactly right. And listen, I've known billionaires. I've worked for billionaires, and a couple of them were the most miserable people I've ever known in my life. You know, so what does that do? You know, I'm miserable, so I'm going to go home and roll around in my money, like, and then what? You know what I mean? It's like these people that, you know, have like shopping addictions and stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're filling a hole in their life, you know. Um, and all this took many years to get to, and much meditation and much thinking and much, you know, introspection and all this stuff. But I think most people do get there eventually. Um, hopefully not too late, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, going back to how to do it, I think you can make plenty of money at a prop firm where you can, and you're always going to think, oh, I can make more, I can make more. But ask yourself, for what, you know. And in a way, I don't want to call it an advantage, but I had the experience of being very broke and needing to live very cheaply, so that, and I didn't grow up poor or anything like that. You know, my dad was a professional, my mom was a professional. We weren't like super rich, but we didn't have any issues, you know. Um, so I was a little spoiled. Then when I grew up and I was like super broke and all that, I learned these lessons, right? So now I still live that way. I'm the cheapest guy that you'll ever meet. You know what I mean? I'll take like nice vacations with my family, and that's all great. But on a day-to-day basis, cars, vacation homes, even the house that I live in, you know, I don't do that stuff. I love the house that I live in, but it's not a $5 million house or anything. You know what I mean? I have a car, but it didn't cost me $100,000. You know what I mean? I drive a normal car. My wife drives a normal car. You know what I mean? We don't go out a lot. You know, we live a very simple life, and that helps then on top of it with the trading. Because now, if I don't need the money in any way, shape, or form, it makes being disciplined, and it makes trading a hell of a lot easier. There's nothing harder than trading when you need the money.
Mhm.
That's going to force your discipline to be bad, and it's going to force you to take trades you shouldn't take because you're chasing the money, right? So all of these things add up, you know, and people laugh at me all the time, you know, um, about that. Like, dude, enjoy yourself. I'm like, I do enjoy myself. I do exactly what I want to do in my life. You know, I mean, if I feel like taking a vacation at any time, I can, right? My wife still works because she enjoys her work. She doesn't make very much money, but she's a preschool teacher and she loves it. And so we can't go away all the time because she has school. But in the summer, we can go take a nice vacation. And when we do, we don't have to worry about, hey, let's not stay in this hotel instead of this hotel, or let's not buy this or that. You know, we don't have to worry about that, which is nice, right? Like, let's sit in the front of the plane. You know what I mean? We can do all that because we don't spend any of the money on the other crap, you know?
You live on your own terms. Yeah.
Try to.
Mm.
Yeah, try to.
And that's what it really boils down to.
But again, the reason I'm able to do that
Mm.
is because I'm not chasing. I mean, look at my shoes. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't bought clothes. The only clothes that I get is like what people buy me for Christmas or whatever. You know what I mean? They buy me T-shirts, and hey, great, I got 5 new T-shirts this year, so I can make it through the year, right? You can see me like on my videos on YouTube and all that. People laugh at me. They call, and my friends too. And I've always kind of been like this, but my friends, when I grew up, they say that I cultivate the homeless look.
It's like, it kind of reflects on your trading, sort of strategy as well, like the contrarian, like you're just doing the opposite of what most people would do, what most people would think they would do in that position. Have you seen that though, the opposite? Like the people who maybe along your career, who may have been in the funds or whatever it may be, where they have increased their expenses so much, and then it's impacted their trading because they've got all this pressure per month to pay out this expenses.
Hundreds of them. I know hundreds of people like that. Worked at a big hedge fund, managed a bunch of money, had a good year, made $10 million. Great. It's a lot of money. Next thing you know, they bought a $6 million apartment in New York City, and they bought a house out in the Hamptons, and then the next year they don't make any money because it turned out they were just lucky that year or whatever, and they're screwed. I know so many people that I've seen that have made $10 million in a year that are screwed. Kids are you live in New York City, kids are in private school. They got 3 kids in these private schools that cost $100,000 a year. I mean, That shit can add up big. I know a lot of people like that. A lot of people like that. And that has helped me to realize too, you know. Now I'm again in a fortunate position where I don't have to worry about it anymore because my kids are grown up. So like they're done. My colleges are paid for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that's all done. So anything I make, really, my kids even ask me, you know, why do you still work and you know you're still involved every day and all day and you're up at night and you're watching the markets. I'm like, A, I like it. B, I don't know what else am I going to do, right? One guy said golfing's great until you got to do it every day, right? But C, I keep telling them I'm doing this for you guys. You know what I mean? My poor son got a decent job and his fiance has a decent job out in LA, but he's like, how am I going to buy a house? You know, he's like, show me houses where he lives. He's like, I have to live within 5 miles of where I work in LA. Otherwise, it's going to take me 3 hours to get to work. And we're looking at places within 3 hours, $2 million for like a 2-bedroom apartment. I mean, he wants to have kids. He's getting married. He wants to. So I'm trying to, you know, work so that I can help them, quite frankly, do that. And I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. You don't want to spoil your kids too much. It's not like I'm going to give him $2 million to buy an apartment. But if I can get him like a decent down payment so that he can then make the payments, you know. Yeah. So that's really what I'm working. And I always tell my wife, too, I'm working for her because, you know, she has friends whose husbands have died of cancer or whatever and left them. And there's a woman with 3 kids and, you know what I mean? She's stuck. She's screwed. They didn't have life insurance. You know what I mean? They're screwed. So I keep telling her, like, this is all for you, hon. Every time she wants to buy something or whatever, and I tell her, and I bitch about it, and she gets upset. I'm like, honey, when I'm gone, you buy everything. I'm trying to get you to a point where, you know, you're not going to have to worry about all this shit. That's all I really care about. So, you know, you start working for others at the end of the day. So
going back to, on a similar topic, going back to what you said earlier in terms of during your 20s, you had that boom and bust cycle, but you got to a point then where you were married, you're having your first child. It was something similar with my journey where I'd gone through the boom and bust cycle when it was just me, you know, not really much responsibility.
right.
It's not good, of course, blowing up and doing all this stuff, but it's only on your own back, right? It's only affecting you.
It's the time to do it.
Yeah. But like, how important was it having that pressure, that responsibility in terms of forcing that discipline or pushing you to maybe take it a bit more seriously or stop making those mistakes?
Yeah, I think it was important. You know, it's funny how the cycle of life goes, you know. That's the time to do it. You're in your 20s. You don't have anything that you're responsible for other than yourself. You're 24. You don't care. You can live in a tent for all you know what I mean? Who cares where you live? It's only once you get married and have kids that you're worried about where you live and, you know, give them a nice house or whatever, give them a nice place to grow up. As a single guy, who cares? You know, you live in a hole, you know what I mean? So that's the time to do it. And that's it. So as I look back, it didn't seem it at the time, but that was great because that's what I did. I learned my lessons then, you know, when I was single and it didn't really matter. And yes, and that then helps you. All these other things come into being and it all comes together, hopefully, to get your discipline there.
Because as part of that journey, though, I'm guessing when you read, obviously, all those books, for example, one of them must have been Market Wizards.
Sure. Right. That's the very first book I read.
Really?
Coincidentally.
Wow.
It just happened to be when I put on my first trade, I'd always been a big reader. So my thought process was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. So maybe I should go out and get a book and read it. And I went to the bookstore across from my office and Market Wizards was in the bookshelves back in those days. It had just come out. So it was like right on the front. And I was like, okay, this looks kind of cool. Interview with top traders. What better way to learn than from some of the top traders? And yeah, it was the first, I read it that night. And when I woke up in the morning, I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. You know, that was the kind of effect. And I think that book had that effect on a lot of people.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that was the first book I read.
So what was it like, full circle moment years later, to then actually be featured in one of the books?
It was strange. It was very strange. And again, the irony of life, the circle of life, right? When I was 23, we were reading Market Wizards and we were all reading it, all the guys I worked with, and we were quoting it all the time. And, you know, my dream would have been to be in Market Wizards. And then when Jack Schwager found me and asked me, I really didn't want to be in it. You know, yeah, because it was like, well, who cares now? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not looking to raise money. I'm not looking for publicity. I'm not looking for any of this stuff. So now that I can be in it, I don't want to be in it. You know what I mean? But I did it because Jack's a super good guy, and he convinced me. He convinced me that would be beneficial. You know, if I was looking to help people and get the word out, that would be a great way to do it. And he was right. So I'm glad I did it. It's been fun. And that led to this whole web page and Discord page and videos and all that, which has been just such a new and interesting, I would say, part of my life. I just came in today on the train. I'm telling you 100% the truth here. Came in on the train. My back's kind of hurting. It's a 2.5 hour train ride. I get up and walk the aisle of the train, and some guy stops me and goes, "Hey, aren't you that guy on YouTube that talks about the markets?"
Really?
Yeah. He's like, "Sit down, let's talk." And we ended up sitting there and talking for like the whole train ride. Nice guy, but like that's just weird to me. You know what I mean? I was never out for fame. I was never looking to be a famous person. I know fame, a lot of people like that. That's not really my thing, but it's been a kind of a weird, interesting journey, which is good because it sort of has rejuvenated. You know, like I say, trading's not exciting to me anymore. I like it to be not exciting to me anymore, which is probably why I size too small relative to where if I get complaints from clients, it's that, you know, lever up more, dude, right? But at this age and at this stage and all that, I'm not looking for excitement. It's a process. It's a business. That's all it is to me, right? I have a job to do, and I do that job. So in a way, it starts to get boring, you know? And I've been thinking about just, again, retiring and all that. But this whole thing has brought sort of a whole new life, you know, which, again, you don't understand that when you're younger. When I was younger, I didn't give a crap about any of that. All I cared about was how much money am I putting in my bag, you know? But you get older and you think about things, and you had mentors. I had mentors when I was younger that I was lucky enough helped me. So you start doing that, and it becomes a whole nother part of your journey, which has been just super interesting. You know, I'm not saying that everybody that has joined our thing and everybody I had talked to, I've turned their lives around or turned their trading around. But some people, you know, have definitely come to me and be like, "Dude, you completely changed everything I do, and it's working, and I can't," you know, that's really awesome. You know, it's awesome. Which, again, as a young person, you would never think that was awesome. Who cares? I just want to make money, right?
Yeah.
But as an older person, and it's kind of made enough money and all that, there's something more to life. Giving back is a very good thing, right? So that's been very interesting, and that all really started because of the book.
Definitely. No, it's like you said, Jack. I was, very blessed to get to interview Jack. So
Yeah, he's a
flip
good
the
guy.
script. Yeah.
Yeah.
We went out over to his place, or near his place, and he is a great person. And he's so good at what he does.
He is.
Even in this format, like he's obviously an author. But even in the format of us discussing, it was the same thing. But I'm glad you did it as well, because just as he's done it too, it's another form of giving back too, in terms of like the books. It's sharing with the up and coming traders, and even the traders who are struggling, of like, here are some traders who are doing it phenomenally well, crazy track records, who've been in your, and that's the beauty of it, I find, from the book, is that you really get to resonate that everyone starts almost the same. Doesn't matter where they're from, doesn't matter how long they've been trading in the end or how much they've made, etc. Pretty much 99% of the time, everyone started the exact same with that boom and bust.
Because we're all the same. Like that's the thing that people don't want to realize. I understand that some people are smarter than others and some people are dumber, but truthfully, it's not that big of a difference, right? We're all people. You know, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, what your religion is, what country you're from. You know what I mean? We're all pretty much, we're humans, and we suffer from the same psychology that everybody does, right? Fear, greed, you know, all these things. So yes, that's why we all go, and that's what I hope, which again, I don't know if I know it would never work for me, but I hope that through my experiences, people can learn, but they usually don't, but then they go through it and they say, "Oh, that's what he was talking about. Now maybe I should," you know what I mean? And again, because we have this Discord thing, now we have like hundreds of people on there. So we're all learning, including me. We're all learning from each other's experiences, which is, it just can make the learning curve that much sharper if you allow it to, right? If your attitude, and there are a few people that still take this attitude. If your attitude is, "Look, I'm great at this. I don't need to, you know, and I'm just going to go on Shapiro's Discord and show him what a great trader I am and put all my trades on there and all that." Okay. I hope that works. I haven't seen that work for anybody, but maybe you'll be the first one. You know what I mean? There's always a first. But chances are, if it doesn't work, well, at least you can fall back and lean on these other people to increase your learning curve. I learn from this stuff. I'm no perfect trader. You know what I mean? I make mistakes all the time, right? My mistakes tend to not cost me very much money anymore because I don't play that game anymore. But I learn from these people all the time. So
Now, I share that same philosophy you just mentioned there in terms of you can teach people, but if they haven't experienced it, it's like the way I sort of like make an analogy out of it is that you got two ends of a bridge. What you've taught or tried to teach and where they're at, and then the experience is what then bridges that. And I think it's so interesting because it's just, I don't know what it is about human nature. Someone can tell you exactly the mistakes they've made to help you avoid them. But it's kind of like the fire, right? It's like, don't touch the fire. It's hot.
first thing you're going to do.
And then you realize.
Yeah.
And I just find it fascinating. And I think it is so interesting that we all have to go through that experience. Like when it comes to the, sharing and seeing those people who have seen progress from the Discord, for example, is there anything that you've seen as a common trait amongst those people who have seen progress, or even in your journey?
Exactly what you're talking about. Most of the people that have seen the progress came there as I have not had success doing this. I would like to try to have success doing this. Let me see what, I've been on other Discords where people are telling me to buy this and sell this. That hasn't worked, Let me see what this guy has to say. I mean, it costs like whatever, $150 for a month. You know what I mean? Here's $150. Let's see if there's any value here and if I can learn anything here. And they've gone there, and I consistently push this idea of we're not here to be a tip sheet. This is not copy trade Jason Shapiro for a million reasons. And people kind of still do because I do show my trades and everything. But even so, the idea here is learn the lessons that are important. No matter how you trade, though, you don't have to trade like me. That's not the idea. The idea is the lessons that are important no matter how you trade. That's what we're trying to do here, right? The discipline, the risk management, and all this stuff. And people get to see how I handle that in my trading, right? Here's what I did. Oh my God, I screwed up. Well, how do I feel about that? Because my newsletter, like I say, was for me for 20 years. I write all that stuff in my newsletter. What's going through my head, what I'm thinking, why I'm angry because I screwed up this trade, how I screwed it up, what I would have done better, right? What I could have done better, right? And then it's great too because they get to read it and they say things like, you said this, but the truth is, because look, I'm still seeing things through my lens, right? I try to keep my mind open and be intellectually honest, but we all have biases no matter what, right? So they'll come back at me and be like, oh, you said this, but really, if you look at it this way, that's not really right. And I'm like, amen. Thanks for pointing that out, right? I'm not here to argue with you. Oh, everything I say is right. Don't frick with me. No, I'm the market wizard and this is my Discord. Don't mess with me, right? Exact opposite, right? So yeah, I forget what your original question was, but who are the people that have succeeded? I think are the ones that have, like you say, are bridging that because they came with the right sort of attitude, right? I've lost money. All this other stuff hasn't worked for me. Maybe this can help me. And I think they have seen that over time it has, so they stick around.
What are your thoughts? I've had a wide range of guests on the podcast, especially growing the foundation of it. It was a lot more of the sort of new age traders, sort of influencers, maybe been trading for the last, say, 10 years, right? Within that period. And recently I've taken a turn, starting with Jack Schwager. We've had a lot more professionals, multi-decade of experience, track records, and so on. And there's one thing that I found interesting is that some people in the audience, or just generally within the social media space, if you will, or in the industry, they have a negative opinion of people having, say, a mentorship or a group or doing seminars or just doing education, trying to help others or teach others. As someone who has a track record and has had that multi-decade experience yourself, like, what is your thoughts on that? Like, in terms of people being able to learn? Because my opinion has always been, if people who are good traders and who are profitable traders don't teach, who's left? Then you've just got the people who aren't profitable. They're the only people left to teach them, right? And that doesn't make sense. So what are your thoughts there?
I think that it's natural and probably right to be cynical. If this guy knew what he was doing, then why is he doing this? Why is Shapiro charging $100 a month if he's such a rich, freaking successful trader? I think that's natural to be very cynical on that. Just to give the short answer, I didn't start this thing. Another guy did. He gets paid. And it costs money to run these things properly. I'm not going to be involved in something that's going to be shoddy, right? Because I don't need to do this, right? That's A, right? But you should be cynical about stuff like that, because why the hell, you know what I mean, are you doing that? But on the other hand, exactly what you're saying, I am doing it because you want to pass this stuff on. You want your legacy to be, look, what's my legacy right now? Okay, I figured out how to pick off a bunch of weak traders and make money. Okay, fine.
Mhm.
I don't make apologies for that. That's how I put food on the table, right? But as I said, once you get older and money is not the game anymore necessarily, what else is there in life? And I had people that helped me that didn't need to help me, that were multi-millionaires that didn't need to help little Jason Shapiro at the time. And they did. And that had a big effect on me. Helmut Weimer, who's the guy who started Commodities Corporation, was a mentor to me. And he was old at the time. You know, he was already in his 70s. He didn't need to do this. The guy was a freaking multi-millionaire, you know. But he loved it, the game still. And he loved to teach, and he loved to mentor. And he didn't just mentor me in terms of, how to trade. In fact, that was very little of what he did. He saw the way I traded, got it, let me manage some of his money, but then he really mentored me in terms of life. You know, he really did. The guy is an incredible human being, an incredibly intelligent human being, a very successful human being, but a human being that has a ton of integrity, and helped develop some of the greatest traders there were came out of Commodities Corporation, right? So that really, and I never had anybody like that in my life, right? So that had a big effect on me. I met Paul Tudor Jones one time.
Wow.
Well, it was just I cornered him at some conference or something like that. I was a kid, right?
Mhm.
Trying to raise money at one of these conferences, and he was the big speaker at the conference. And I went up to him, being the cocky kid I was probably 28, 29 at the time. And I shook his hand. I said, "Hey, Tudor, I'm coming after you." And he looked at me. He said, "Well, when you get there, make sure you give back." That's all he said. Those kind of things have an effect on me. You know what I mean? Maybe not at the time. I'm like, what's he talking about, man? You know what I mean? It's easy to say that. You're a billionaire. You know what I mean? But in time, you start to understand why somebody says something like that, and why a person of integrity says something like that, right? So, again, I forget what the original question was, but what do I think about the whole mentorship? Yes. If you can find somebody that is good and is in the right position to do that, I think it's great. We know clearly that there are a lot of shills out there. And they, by definition, as shills, do a great job of salesmanship, right? And I think you have to avoid that. And it shouldn't be that hard to avoid, because if you just think for a second, you know what I mean? When they're telling you that 90% of their trades make money, run. It's just not true, right? You have to remember, these people don't get audited. There's no SEC for like these online people, because the SEC, they've busted a couple of them, I guess, but truthfully, they don't have the time. They got much bigger fish to fry. They got hedge fund guys that are insider trading for billions. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They got bigger fish to fry. So these guys kind of fall, underneath, and they get away with this stuff. And we have many people on our Discord now that have come from those places and have told us the true stories. Like, hey, I got on this guy's thing. He says he makes money all the time. And then I got on there and all I did was lose money, and he's a liar and a shill and all that. And then he changes the name of his service so that, he can. It shouldn't be that hard to avoid those people. It's obviously very sexy. Hey, this guy makes money 90% of the time. I should join, right? I get it. And, I find myself, it's so funny, I find myself falling victim to the same type of stuff, even though I'm so cynical and so contrarian. I still hear somebody on TV making an argument about a stock or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. I should buy this thing, right? So I get, and I never do, okay? I'm like, what am I talking about, right? But I get it. I get it. And it sounds like it's easy. And hey, man, I found this guy and I can make money listening to him. you have to try to, as best you can, avoid those people. Look at their track record. If they have a real track record, look for it before you get involved with anybody, right? You should know the shilly behavior, because if you have any experience with other human beings, you should know what a shill looks like. But look, history is filled with people that are scammers that made a lot of money scamming. I mean, Bernie Madoff, he didn't shill just some poor kid, 23-year-old kid on the internet looking to make some money. He shilled some of the theoretically smartest and richest investors in the world, right? So it can be difficult to avoid it, but and if you find someone that you like or you think is good, start small. Buy their service for 1 month. What are you going to lose? A couple $100 if it ends up being bullcrap, right? And that's the other thing I have found. I was never involved in any of this and never even knew it existed, right? I was living my life managing money and hedge funds and stuff. I didn't know any of this existed. And I think it's really picked up in the last 5 years anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
But if you're signing up and they're like cross-selling you on, oh, don't sign up for a month. If you sign up for 5 years, then, you know what I mean, we'll give you a discount. Like, run. You know what I mean? Because why? Why do I have to sign up for 5 years? Why can't I sign up for a month and see if it's any good? Ask yourself these questions. Be cynical about this stuff, right? But I think there are people out there that can help in various ways. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to come to me to help you be a breakout trader, but there are good breakout traders, I think, that are out there that can help you do that. I've seen some people that I think are good. I've also seen ones that I think are scams, So anyway, yes, a mentor, just like in anything else, can be very good, but just like anything else, find a good one.
It's a mindset, right? I think it just comes down to being a mindset, especially a lot of the time it can be your positioning. If you're in your 20s, again, you're treating trading like it's exciting.
Right.
You really want the money. Right. So you're just gravitating towards whatever person is promoting that.
That's right.
So that's what you want. So then your mindset is like, that's right.
100%. 100%. These guys that are trading every day and giving out trades and join our special secret group for extra money that's going to give you these great intraday trades and all that. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not. And you'll find out, but
Definitely. I think it goes back to that bridge as well. It's like we can say it right now, but it's again where it's like once people experience it, hopefully just once, maybe a couple of times for the most part, then they start to recognize, okay, now I need to be a bit more cynical, need to be a bit more patient when choosing the next person, right? And I think once people start to get a bit more internal, it's kind of what you said earlier in terms of like the meditation, etc. How important is it to understand yourself as a trader, understand your characteristics?
It's the most important thing. I mean, trading is nothing more than just a function of life and psychology, right? So with everything in life, how important is it to understand yourself and your motivations? This has got to be the single most important thing there is if your goal is happiness. So yeah, in trading, it's extremely important, I mean, I've always told people, like, if they're thinking about joining I'm like, don't come here if you're looking for somebody to feed you a bunch of trades. That's not what I'm not looking to give you fish. I'm looking to help you learn how to fish, right? But if what you're looking to do is turn your $10,000 into $1 million in a year, this isn't the right place. Go to these places that you see on the internet and do that. And then when you lose all your money, which you're most likely going to do, if you are still interested in learning how, then come to us and maybe we can help you if you have any money left. You know what I mean? I mean, I've had people come to me and be like, oh my God, I had $500,000 and I lost it all. All I have left is $50,000. Can you help me get my $500,000 back? I'm like, no. How am I going to help you do that? I can help you take that $50,000 and hopefully learn how to manage it in a responsible way. And over time, you can put up a good return. But, what do you want me to do? You want me to tell you what the S&Ps are going to do in the next week and you're going to put it all on the line? That's exactly what you shouldn't be doing is what you're going to hear from me. So, I had a really sad story with that one time. It was a guy hit me up on LinkedIn. He's from Turkey. And he's like, Jason, oh my God, I read your stuff in Market Wizards and I love what you're doing. And, I put all my money long the Turkish stock market and the thing's down like 25% in the last 2 weeks and I've lost 90% of my money. What am I going to do? What should I do? And I said, look, I don't know anything about the Turkish stock market. I don't even watch it, right? I don't know what it's done. I don't know where it's going. But the point is, what should you do? Get the hell out. That's what you should do. And you shouldn't have levered up to a point where you can lose 90% of your money in a month or whatever, right? You never should have done that to begin with. But all I can tell you is get out. And he's like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Thank you so much. And I swear that was the low of the market. It went up like 50% in the next
Really?
4 months. I felt so bad. Like I wasn't telling him get out because I didn't think the market was going up. I'm just like, you got to get out because you're doing this wrong.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But as it turned out, if he didn't do anything, he probably would have made all his money back. And of course, I never heard from him again. I'm always looking at my window. I think the kid's going to come over here and kill me. You know?
Yeah.
But
well, in terms of what you've said it a couple of times now, and I think it's very fascinating in terms of like prediction. There's so many strategies out there, and I feel like a lot of people are always trying to find the strategy. One mistake I see that's very key, actually, because I've had people where they've learned to trade, they've gotten a profitable return, very respectable, 4 or 5% in a month, for example, consistently over a few months, right? So that's the start of their journey of profitability. It doesn't have to always look like that, but that's what they've done. They've worked hard, had a fixed strategy, they've stuck to that strategy, been disciplined, gotten the return. But they decide to go learn something else because they're looking for something that is perfect, that allows them to look at the market and predict it from point to point, pip to pip.
Right.
And where does that end? Like, where do you think that mindset comes from? Is that something you went through at any point or stage in your career?
I mean, I think that always trying to improve is certainly great. You're never going to get the perfect thing. I personally don't believe in the ability to predict the future. I'm not a subscriber to Nostradamus. I don't think that was real. I don't know. I didn't live back then, but I think that people interpret the Nostradamus stuff as they want to interpret it, right? He writes some very general stuff, and then people find something that happened today and be like, oh, that's what he said, right? But it's like, I mean, if you want to interpret it that way. But I don't believe in the ability to predict the future. There's no time machine. I don't believe in that. So I think that's the number one mistake people make. It seems silly because it's like, well, how else am I going to make money if I don't predict the future? And the idea is you have to get yourself into good risk reward situations where if your trade works, you make $10. And if your trade doesn't work, you lose $1. That's what you want to try and get into. It's not about predicting where things are going to go. It's about if things go this way, I'm going to make a lot of money. And if they don't, I'm going to lose a little bit of money. And that way you don't have to predict the future. You can be right. My trades work less than 40% of the time. But I make much more on the ones I make on than I lose on the ones I lose on. So the math over time works. Lose $1, make $5. Lose $1, make $5. That's 33% winner. But if you can do that, you're going to make money over time. So I think that's what people really, it's very hard to get there, I find. But I can promise you that is what trading is. It's not about predicting the future. It's about figuring out how to get into good risk-reward situations. And there's plenty of those out. Look, a breakout is a good risk-reward situation. Here's something that I don't trade breakouts. I'm not a momentum trader. But here's something that's breaking out. That seems like, you know what I mean? If it's making new highs, hey, there's nothing like a new high to beget more new highs, right? So that's a good risk-reward situation, I think. But again, when it fails on that breakout, well, then get the hell out, lose $1 and then move on to the next breakout. You do that enough times, you'll catch a breakout that's going to make you $50 versus all the $1 losses, right? That's the game, and that's the discipline, and that's the mindset, and that's the risk management part that's so important, right?
At one point, I was going to say to you, like, the way I understand your strategy and the way that you operate within the market was like more of a reversal, right? Looking for reversals in the markets, but that's not correct, because what I realized is, let's say if the market's long already, but most people think it's going to reverse, you're essentially still going to long it. That's really your sort of viewpoint. It wouldn't be your reversal trader. So I almost had that misconception.
I'm a reversal trader, but what I am not trying to do is trade reversals based on price.
Yeah.
Because that is called fighting the tape.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking to do that. I'm trying to find where people are way too long something.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, like, I'm not mean reverting price. I'm mean reverting participation.
Yes.
And there's a difference. And you can use that in many different ways. You could be a trend follower and say, look, they're not super long this trend, so I should stick with it, versus everybody is long this trend, so maybe I should reduce, right? That's one way to use sort of this type of positioning stuff as well. I think that if you have two markets that are moving exactly the same, the trend looks exactly the same, and this one, everybody in the world is long, and this one, no one is long, which one would you rather be in? It's as simple as that, right? And that's what positioning is kind of all about. Now, I wait and pick the turns, but if I were a trend follower, I would do it the other way. I would ride the trends where people aren't long, and I would try to reduce or get out of the trends that everybody was long, right? That's another way to do it. There's plenty of ways to use that type of information.
What is it? How would you go about like entries with that sort of information though? So you're not using price to predict the markets. Would you use price to time your entries, or is it?
I think again, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're thinking, let the market tell you you're right first, right?
Okay.
Let the market confirm you're right first. Don't play a breakout because you think it's going to break out. Play a breakout because it's breaking out. Let the market confirm it, right? So with me, I'm trying to pick a turn. I'm saying everybody is super short here. They're going to get burned, but I have to wait because sometimes the trends continue, and sometimes trend followers make money, right? So I'm waiting for a market confirmation. So for me, what market confirmation is I like the market to tell me that it's not going down anymore, meaning if a market's going down, 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 and it's getting crowded short, they're super crowded short, I am now paying very close attention to that market because I'm looking to buy it. What's been driving it down? What's the fundamental news that's getting these people so bearish? And then I'm looking for a piece of fundamental news that matches that. And then the market won't go down on it. I call it news failure, right?
Okay, yes.
So the market probably does go down on it, but then reverses and closes up on the day. It's like, why did it close up on the day? Didn't everybody see the news? And clearly everybody did see the news, but everybody's already short. So there's no one left to get short anymore.
Essentially, it's like that's when people are priced. It's already priced in.
It's already priced in. Exactly, but not priced in according to price.
Yes.
Priced in according to participation, which to me is what the discounting mechanism is. People think it's price. I think it's participation that discounts things. And the perfect example of this, which I cite all the time because it was so obvious and clear and a market that everybody follows, was the low of the S&P in late 2022. The market was going down all of 2022 because inflation. That was the whole story. CPI was too high. They're going to have to raise rates and da-da-da-da-da. Well, the October CPI number came out. It was the biggest CPI number of the entire run. And it was a bigger CPI number than was even expected. So the market had every reason to be down that day. And it was. And then it closed up on the day. That was the exact low of the stock market. Doesn't always work that way. Doesn't always work when that happens. But that's one example where that absolutely worked, right? And that's how I then put on my trades. They're all super short. You get a big number like that.
Yep.
It's very bearish, closes up on the day. I will get long. And I'll get long versus the low of that day because I'm picking a turn. If it goes through that low, well, then I didn't pick the turn, did I, by definition? So I'll take my loss. Whereas if I get it right, I'm basically risking 1 day's worth of volatility. Whereas if I get it right and the thing goes up for the next 6 months or whatever, right, then I'm making multiple times that 1 day of volatility.
100%. No, it makes complete sense. And one thing I want to ask you actually is like style of trading. Like, what's your sort of time horizon? It doesn't sound like you're scalping.
No, most of my winning trades will last like anywhere from 2 to 4 months.
Nice.
I'm trying to trade it from they're super crowded short to now they're neutral. Because then there's my edge, I feel, is that they're super crowded short. So if and when the market turns, they get squeezed. Once they're squeezed out and they're neutral, I take my profit.
Okay.
Doesn't mean the market's not going to keep going up. It might, or it might go back down. I don't know, but my edge is gone. So I trade that, right?
Yes.
A lot of times I'll get out and the thing will keep going. Okay, but that's a trend follower job at that point. I've done my job, right?
Yes.
And that's the trend follower's job, is to catch the rest of that. And what I found through my testing and my live trading is that even if I keep that on, I might make more return but the volatility goes way up at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It might keep going up, but all of a sudden it's like all over the place.
And the
right?
emotions with that.
Yeah, and the trend followers get involved, and everybody gets involved, so the volatility goes up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I lose return versus volatility, right? I lose risk-adjusted return, but also then my correlation obviously goes up to trend following as well, and my business is based around
Kind of changes
that whole
edge
thing.
then, right?
Yes.
Like you said, your edge is gone at that point, which
Right.
I think is a really interesting statement, because I don't think a lot of people think in that way. A lot of people constantly are always trying to think like, okay, that trade, I could have made more. How do I make more?
Right.
Not realizing that to make more, you're essentially then going a whole different edge.
Yes.
Which is no problem having different playbooks, for example.
No.
But the reality is, if you're getting in on one particular playbook, it's not, I don't think it's really possible to continue that trade with a different one, right?
I mean, you
There might
could
be
run, like, for
circumstances.
example, let's say you did what I do. All
Mhm.
right, you're trying to pick these turns. Well, you could also run a trend following program and run them both together.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and then you will be in that trade as a trend. You know, my stuff ends up being actually a very good exit for trend following, because the trend followers are in. They get super crowded. I go the other way.
Yeah.
All that really is doing is exiting the trend following portion. Now, I don't have the trend following portion, but my clients do.
Mm-hmm.
They have trend following in their portfolio, and so I'm actually, the trend follower won't get out until they get squeezed all the way up here, whereas I'm basically getting them out here, right? So you could do it that way, you know.
Something you said earlier, which actually stood out to me as well, which was in regards to, being not correlated in terms of your returns. Because if you're trading the same as everyone else, you're not really unique then. You're not really special. You're not really like, why should they pick your track record or you when they already have 50 other traders doing the exact same thing? And I find that fascinating, because I haven't really thought of it in that way before, where actually you have such an edge because it is so against everyone else, which means then when those people are losing, or at least it gives a really strong alpha or edge to a firm, to a track record, to your own trading. How important was that for you? I guess it was so important for your career as
I mean,
a
as
trader.
far as a money man, I wish I was smart enough to have planned it that way and thought of it that way, but it's just not how it happened. It just happened to be the way I think. It happened to be the way I trade. And then as it turned out, I didn't know enough about the money management. I didn't know anything about portfolio theory. I didn't know that stuff, right? But as it turned out, because I trade that way, that is the return stream that it gives. And as it turns out, people need that return stream in their portfolio. So for my business, it's been a very, obviously a great benefit. But that's not how, I didn't start out with that idea, because I didn't even know I didn't know what any of that meant. I ended up at one point going to business school and learning what that meant. But so now I can talk about it, but that wasn't the plan in the beginning. But yes, from a business perspective, it's if I were a trend follower, I wouldn't be managing any money. What the hell are you going to give me money for, sitting in my house in Rhode Island, not shaving and dressing like a slob? You know what I mean? Go give it to Ken Tropin, who has 30 years track record of trend following and has 300 people working for him in a research department and a nice office and all that. That's who you're going to give your money to, For me, because I have this thing that nobody has, people are willing to give me money despite my personality quirks.
I think it's fascinating. And I think it really just pays testament to, like, anyone can be a trader, which leads me on to my next question. Like, do you think anyone can be a trader? Because when I've asked that question previously, it's like yes and no, in the sense that anyone could, but not everyone should.
I don't think anyone should. Like I say, people look at the glamorous side and they miss the other side, right? I tell people all the time, when they tell me, and people come up to me all the time and say that, I want to be a full-time trader. What should I do? I go, here's what you should do. Go to law school. That's what you should do. That's my famous line, right? Go to law school. What do you mean? I go to law school, make $800 an hour as a lawyer. And if you really want to be a trader, then instead of taking your $800 an hour as a lawyer and buying, a $2 million house, buy a $500,000 house and put that other $1.5 million into your trading account and start trading. Okay. First of all, it's going to be a lot easier to trade if you already know you have a first income that's covering your expenses. Yes. And second of all, now go do that for 3 to 5 years. In those 3 to 5 years, you'll be making a ton of money as a lawyer. And if you have success trading 3 to 5 years, okay, now quit your job and go trade. That's the smart way to do it. Yeah. I didn't do that. I wish I did, right? Although, again, if I got a job as a lawyer, they probably would have fired me within the first 6 months anyway. But I really can't tell. I had to do it the other way.
Mhm.
I had to find other sources of income on the side so that I could fund my trading, right? But I think really believe you do it the other way.
Mhm.
Get a good job. Don't spend the money that you're making in that. Put that money into it and trade. And if it's working after a few years, then okay, go for it. Why not do it that way? Why not be hedged?
Yeah, no, it's so interesting you say that, because I've always given the same sort of similar advice to people who come to me and say, I want to leave university because I want to trade, right? Leave college, you want to trade. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Don't.
why? Like, why? Oh, I don't enjoy it, whatever it may be. And I get that. I get it if you don't enjoy it, especially people who, let's say, are 2 years in, they've only got 1 year left. They've already got the debt for 2 years and,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. And I'm saying, just don't do it, because you're better off learning the skill set whilst you have a job or going through university, having something or some form of diploma that allows you to make a very decent wage. It might not even be a crazy wage, but it's better than, say, if you have no diploma and the only sort of job that I could do, for example, being in that position, was restaurants. And the best job that I would always suggest to people who don't have diplomas is like sales jobs, because that's where you can, through commission, try and increase it a bit.
Right.
But the reality being, though, some of my friends who went to university, making 3-4 times my income. I was making, let's say, an average wage, while they were making above average wage, simply because they went and got the diploma, and therefore they could get jobs where the entry level was already a higher wage. And I think it's
Right.
definitely the best advice. And it's very similar to that bridge thing. Again, people will listen to it and say, nah,
Look, it's not. And as a person of that age, there's no way to know this.
Mhm.
It's not what you think it is. Trading is not some easy road to riches. There's a reason why the best traders are so rich, right? Because there's so few people that can do it, right? It's just like anything else. You get a job that everybody can do, you're not going to get paid a lot of money by definition, supply and demand, right? If you can do something that most people can't do, hey, you can play in the NBA. Yeah, you can make $40 million a year, because there's very few people that can do that.
Mhm.
It's all supply, and it's the same thing with trading. There's a reason why these people make so much money, and it's because there are so few that can do it, right? It's not like, oh, I got to get into the market because look how rich these guys in the market. You're not hearing about the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that failed, and you don't hear about the failures. You only hear about the successes, right? Obviously, that's an old story, right? But it's a fact. There's such a small percentage of people that succeed in doing this. That's why they get paid so much money.
Yeah.
Think about it in those terms. It's not this. I get it. As a young kid, I would have thought the same thing. Oh, get into Wall Street, make a bunch of money. Yeah, as a salesman, right? But as a trader, it's just not that.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if it were, and it seems like that from the outside. Oh, it's easy,
Mhm.
right? You just go in there and start trading it up and make a ton of money. It's just not that. It's the hardest thing that you could ever do.
Definitely.
Maybe being. I don't mean to disrespect people that do real hard jobs, like
Yeah.
being a fireman, going into a burning house and saving people's lives. I'm not trying to disrespect them. That's harder physically than trading. But as far as the mental, and that's obviously hard psychologically too, but the mental capital, the difficulty of self-discipline and psychology that you have to overcome to be successful in trading, it's extremely difficult. I can promise you that. And again, you're not going to listen to me, but one day you'll go, that freaking Shapiro guy, he told me he told me that this was hard, and he was damn right.
That's it. It kind of leads on to that. As I mentioned earlier, the tweet that you made, which I found it was so interesting, and that's so true as well, which is, here we go. People tell me I want to be a trader because I love trading, but everyone loves trading. It's a vice like gambling or drinking. The question is, will it make your life happier and more fulfilling? What would you think if someone said, I want to be an alcoholic because I love drinking? Let's unpack that in terms of, I hear that a lot as well. Like, I love trading, or especially, I'll tell you what's interesting, actually. I don't hear that I love trading. I say, why do you want to be a trader? I love money. I want to make money, right? And I always find that fascinating, because with trading, if you just love money, if that's the reason you're doing it,
You're dead.
you're dead. Exactly, because the first thing you're going to do is lose money. And so if your thing, the whole thing with trading is that you love money, you want to make money, what happens to your mindset straight away when you lose it, which will happen straight away.
Well, you're lucky if you lose money right away, to tell you the truth. I didn't
Yeah.
lose money right away.
Yeah.
I got involved in a bull market and I made a bunch of money. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me because I figured I was a freaking genius and I knew what I was doing. And so then I lost it all. The greatest thing is if you lose money right away, which, by the way, you're dealing with the least amount of money you will ever deal with when you start. So at least you're losing a little bit of money and at least you have a lot of time to catch up, right? But yeah, that came after I had a conversation with a guy who called me up. He actually hit me up somewhere. Email, he got my email somehow or whatever, and he came up from New Jersey up to Rhode Island to have coffee with me, and that's what he said to me. I want to be a trader because I love trading. And I'm like, dude, I hear that every day. Everybody loves, what's there not to love about it? It's exciting and up and down and blah, 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 and you feel alive and all this stuff. That doesn't get you anywhere. Everybody loves trading. Just like I say, everybody loves, I don't, but most people love drinking too, you know? I'm sure if we shot heroin, which I've never done, we'd love heroin too, you know? I mean, heroin addicts love heroin, okay? They don't hate it, they love it. And I bet there's a good reason. I bet it makes you feel freaking great. I haven't had the pleasure, but I bet it makes you feel great. But where do you end up as a heroin addict, right? There's no difference. Loving it is not the answer, you know? And it's the trap, you know, it's really the trap. So I think that's the point of that tweet. And that's why I said it about alcoholic, right? I love drinking. And a lot of people love drinking. Okay, so therefore be an alcoholic because you love drinking? There's no difference in the thought process there, right? So I think that's something to think about. Saying that I want to be a trader because I love trading. It's great. You want to do what you love, but do you really love it? Do you know enough to know?
Yeah.
I don't love trading. It's pain. Okay. Right. There's so much pain involved, right? It's either you know, you had too much size on when it went bad. You didn't have enough size. Even when it goes good, you didn't have enough size on when the trade goes good. Like it's a constant battle, right? So I think that was the point of that.
Off the back of that though, like, so the trading aspect for sure, you know, I completely agree with. And I agree in general, to be fair. But in terms of passion for the markets, how important do you think that is to actually be
clearly,
passionate?
passion for anything, you know. But what does passion mean, right? It means you are looking to, if you're really passionate about something, you'll spend the time to learn how it works, right? That's what passion is, right? It's like I say, like an NBA player. An NBA player, sure, was probably born tall and probably born athletic, but there's a lot of tall, athletic people out there, right? Guys who make it in the NBA, trust me, were sitting there from the time they were kids, dribbling and shooting for hours and hours and hours a day. That's passion, right? No matter how athletic you are, there's a lot of people that are athletic and a lot of people that would love to make $30 million a year, right? I do not feel that any of them got there because they loved basketball. They got there because they loved basketball so much that they were willing to spend 8 hours a day to do it, right? Even they talk about Kobe Bryant, who was clearly a natural athlete and a natural talent, but they talk about his work ethic even to the last day.
Yep.
You know, so if you love it, great, prove it. You know, that's the proof. If you love it, then spend 8-10 hours a day doing it. Not just trading, but learning about trading, studying trading, putting together a process, for trying to figure stuff out, back testing, that's love. You know, so saying you love it's one thing.
Yeah.
You love it because, it can make me a lot of money. You know what I mean? Hey, I love basketball because I can make $40 million in the NBA. Well, I ain't making the NBA. So I better love something else. And what's real love, you know? Like I say, I love music. I love guitar. But do I spend 8 hours a day practicing guitar? No, I don't. I'm lucky if I spend an hour a day practicing guitar. And a lot of times I feel guilty about it. I'll be sitting up at night and I'll be watching TV and I'll be like, I should be playing my guitar.
Yeah.
But it's just not there. You know, I'm not Jimi Hendrix walked around with a guitar all the time. They say he would like go and make dinner and he'd have his guitar strapped to him while he was cooking his spaghetti. He'd be doing stuff. I don't do that. I'm never going to become a great guitar player. Okay, I can still enjoy it. It's a hobby. I can still have fun. But if you really love it, then that means you're willing to really put in the effort.
In a sense then, so essentially you love trading because you did everything. if that makes sense. Not the trading itself, as you already said, but more so you love everything around it to become a profitable trader. Or at one point, maybe you did. Maybe that changed. I'm not sure. But in terms of like, you've done the journaling, the testing, the, making sure to keep up to date with the markets, even to this day,
Yes.
still journaling essentially.
Yeah.
So essentially, though, you don't love the actual trade itself, putting the trade on, watching that, managing that, the emotions of that, but more so the markets. Like you've done the Kobe Bryant in basketball, you've done the Jimi Hendrix in guitar, but in trading.
I think so. And I never was like, oh, I love trading, so I'm going to do it. It just, that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So it proves, and it's funny that you say that because it's true. I always say I hate trading, but if I hate trading so much, then why did I spend all those hours doing it, right?
Exactly.
It was natural. That was I gravitated towards it for whatever reason, right? And the proof was that I did put all this work in, and I still to this day, these guys on my Discord laugh at me because to this day, because the first place I ever traded was Hang Seng. In my internal clock, I wake up every night. I can't even help it, no matter where I'm sleeping. If it's in my bed, if it's on my couch, if I fell asleep in a chair, 5 minutes before the Hong Kong market closes, I wake up.
Really?
And I get on the computer, even though I don't trade Hong Kong anymore. Or I don't even trade Asia anymore, right? But all this stuff's open 24 hours anyway. But I get on my computer and I check what the markets are doing. Every day at 3:55 a.m., I wake up. And I check, and there's always people on our Discord talking because we got a bunch of people in Asia and Europe, and these people are all market lunatics. So, and I'll put something on. I'm like, yo, what happened in the Nikkei tonight? And they'll laugh at me. They're like, dude, what are you doing? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, don't you ever sleep?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh man, I got a great sleep. I fell asleep at 10. It's 4. I got a nice 6 hours in, and now I'll go back to sleep for another few hours, but I wake up for 5-10 minutes, right? I can't help it. Like, it's not even a conscious decision. Like literally it's an internal clock thing.
It's incredible. It just shows that's what I mean. It shows that dedication that's there, and it's just ingrained inside you now.
It's subconsciously ingrained inside me.
Does it ever annoy you that you're waking up at that time? Or
not really. I mean, my whole life is based around, like I take a nap every day at 4:15 for a good hour and a half to 2 hours. And then I'll stay up till like whatever, 11 or so, fall asleep. I wake up at that little 4 o'clock spot, and then I'll sleep from 4:15 or so until 7 o'clock or whatever. So I get my hours in, but it's all around this. Like
markets.
Everything that I do, like I was talking about before, is based around. It's not just the trading and the process and all that. Everything in my life is based around trying to increase the chances of success, which includes trying not to spend money, because I know damn well, and look, I could spend some money if I felt like it, right? But I know that the less you need to make it, the easier it becomes in trading. All this stuff is based around trying to increase my success in trading. Everything that I do is based around trying to increase my success in trading. And that's, I believe, what it takes.
This is what I was going to say. I was going to say, especially for the level that you've gotten to in trading as well. Because most people, like you said, when you were in your 20s, you wanted to be a billionaire, the next George Soros, right?
Yeah, let's go.
And even right now, same thing, that most people, when they're getting into trading.
Naturally.
But I just feel like they don't know what it takes. They really don't understand what it takes. But you've given really good insight there into like what it actually takes, where you're setting everything up from finances to your routine, everything for the increase the chances of success. Without even knowing, though, that it will be there, if that makes sense. Like, you don't guarantee that if you do all of this, you're going to be successful.
Still doesn't guarantee it.
Yes.
But it increases the chances. I don't have any debt. I didn't buy a house for a very long time until I could buy my house for cash. Now, I could take the cash that it takes to buy a house and put that as a 20% down payment, and I could buy a house 5 times more expensive that has, on the ocean with an infinity pool. And, you know what I mean? I could do that. But I don't, because I don't want any debt. I don't have any car loans. I don't have any of that. Not because I wouldn't love to live like a king, but because I outside of my family, my number one thing is to be successful in
Mhm.
trading. And that I have found for me helps me, even if it's just that much.
Yeah.
Helps me be successful in trading. That much of a difference is a big difference in this game.
Have you found from your experience as well that those top traders, the ones who have lasted the time, so we talked about earlier, remember we talked about the traders who would spend the money and then that pressure would then get to them and they would blow up afterwards.
Yes.
On the flip side of that, have you seen the traders who have had the length, the 10, 20, 30 year careers and more live a very similar sort of life in the sense that some might get a luxurious thing here and there, whatever it may be, like you talked about earlier, like when you travel how you want to travel, but overall they're not five luxury cars, 10 different
I
mansions.
mean, Steve Cohn seems to have done all right
Mm-hmm.
over a long period of time, and he seems to spend some money. He owns the New York Mets.
That's true. Yeah, very true. Yeah.
But I bet even with him, you know what I mean? He's probably worth 20 billion or whatever, and he spends 2 billion. You know what I mean? Like,
It's all proportion.
He's a different animal, obviously. But there certainly are people that have made a bunch of money and spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I don't think Paul Tudor Jones is living like a pauper by any means, and he's driving his Maybach or whatever. Everyone's got to make a choice. I made the choice where I'm never going to get to that point, because I don't really feel that I need to at this point. Now that I can get there, maybe when I was, Tudor they got in this business early.
Yeah.
They were able to get success very early. So if I was able to do that early at 30, I probably would have chased that.
Okay.
At this point, at 56, going to be 57 in a few weeks, I don't need that. I don't want that. It's not worth it to me. So I'm not going to get there, so I don't have to worry about it. But those guys, if I had done it at 30, if I had been in the business, if I had been born 20 years earlier and I got in the business early and got a few lucky breaks and caught the 87 crash or whatever, like Tudor did, then maybe I would have gone that way, But that wasn't for me, as it turned. That wasn't my fate. And now I understand why that's not my fate, because that's not the type of person that I am. Like, those people have a lot of things going on. You have all that kind of money, and God bless you if you do, but they have a lot of things going on, man. They're going to charity balls, they're sitting on boards of directors of all these things. That's not me. I don't think I would be comfortable in those situations. I don't even own a suit. I do own one in case I have to go to a wedding, but I don't like to go into the city. I don't like to deal with people like that and all that stuff. And I'm not even comfortable. When I ran my fund and I had a bunch of people working for me, I wasn't even comfortable being a boss. I don't really like people looking to me for their success, just like I didn't like being an employee because I didn't like to count on other people above me for my success. Like, I'll fail and succeed based on me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll accept that. I may not like it, but I'll accept it. And so I'm not comfortable with other people looking to me for that stuff either. It's just how I am. It's a little weird, Somebody once said to me, I remember in Hong Kong, my friend's girlfriend, I worked for a big company in Hong Kong, and I was in their management development program, and you sit there and you move up and you're managing all these people. And I was always like, I hate this. I don't want to get to where I'm supposed to get to in this, right? Okay, in 15, 20 years, I could be a senior manager at this big, I don't want that. So, like, what the hell am I doing? And she was like, well, what about leading men? And I was like, leading men? I am not the person to lead men. There are other people that like to lead men and are probably the people to lead men. And some men need to be led and want to be led, and we need leaders. But that's not me. So I shouldn't be the person doing that. Where am I going to lead men? I'm going to lead them down the freaking hole, man. It's like Charles Barkley said, right? I'm nobody's, whatever he said,
Because just thinking about it, that is another reason why trading, I guess, would be quite, appealing to you. Because it's something where you can be successful without having to do all of that, You can be very successful. You can essentially make an unlimited amount, right? And live that life or whatever it may be without having to deal with other people, management, company structure, any of that stuff.
Well, if you want to make that kind of money, you need company structure.
Yeah.
I run a good amount of money. I would argue maybe, I don't know this for a fact, but I would argue that I probably have the largest one-man money management firm
Really?
because it's very difficult to do that. The only reason I'm able to pull it off is because of this non-correlation thing, right?
Mhm.
Like I say, if I were a trend
Very true,
follower,
yeah.
I wouldn't have any money, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I manage a good amount of money, but if I wanted to manage billions of dollars, I couldn't do it like
Mhm.
this. I would need an infrastructure. I would need people. I would need an office. I would need all that stuff, right? So
But
like
you made a good
I
point.
could never make $1 billion doing what I'm doing
Mhm.
here, right? I could try to make the decision to do that,
Mhm.
go out and start raising money again, and it wouldn't be that hard for me to. It's always hard, but I think it would be a hell of a lot easier for me now than it ever was for me to go out and raise a whole bunch of
Mhm.
money and start trying to make $100 million a year or whatever.
Are you able to share how much you are managing now, or even if it's in
It's
a
about $200 million.
really? Wow, wow. Which leads me to one question that's been in my mind. I've always wanted to make sure we've covered it. Was in terms of scaling, because obviously there was a time when you were trading, probably tens of thousands of dollars. Now you're talking obviously
A
such a
lot.
large capital. What was the mindset like, and any of the struggles that you may have had, or even like positive points of that scaling process? I know obviously that
It
scaling
means
process.
nothing to me now
Hmm.
because it's all just a trade and it's all just a percentage of my capital that I risk per trade. It was a big jump when I first joined a hedge fund, and I went from managing sort of my personal capital. When I joined this first big hedge, I was managing $50 million all of a sudden,
Wow.
and that went up to hundreds of millions of dollars within like 3 years. But we slowly scaled it up as they were raising more money, and as I gained their trust. We scaled it up.
Mhm.
But the first jump to 50, you know, was a little unusual, but I had planned for it. I was ready for it. You know what I mean? And it's all just a risk per trade. How much are you willing to risk per trade? I know where my stops are. I don't violate them. I know where my entry is. I know how much I'm going to lose on a trade going in. Where am I comfortable losing? And that's the size I put on. And so from there, it doesn't matter if it's 10 or if it's 10 times 10, 10, one contract, 10 contracts, 100 contracts, 1,000 contracts. It's just a number at that point, and it's all just a percentage of the capital that I manage. So it's just a function of that.
Interesting. Because reading Market Wizards, one of the key themes in the original book was that they would always talk about trading like a game, like this big game. Not in the sense of, because I think some people might hear that and say, I'm professional. That's the wrong mindset. But it's quite the opposite in terms of they're treating it like a game. Because a lot of the time when it was more so they would describe it in that way when Jack would ask them in terms of like, how did you overcome those beginning stages of, the blowing up, etc. And therefore they would say like, it's just all a big game. Therefore like you said, it's like you focus on the numbers of the game. You focus on whether it's the risk, whether it's the reward, knowing all the factors, not in terms of price action or where it's going, but more so, this is how much I'm going to lose on this trade. This is how much
That's
I'm going
it.
to win. Focusing on those elements that you
Yes.
control, that you can control. Everything else outside your control is outside the game.
That's right. One has nothing to do with the other. It's psychologically you have to get over that, but you just do it slowly, and you can slowly get there. At one point I wanted to play poker.
Yeah.
And I lived down in Jersey, and I was pretty close to Atlantic City, and I was going down to Atlantic City, and I started playing on the poker table, 1-3 poker, and I played there for about 6 months, and I was doing pretty well. So I moved up to 2-5 poker, and I stayed there for about 3 months, and I did pretty well. So I moved up to 5-10 poker, and it took me a little while, but I ended up doing pretty well. So I'm like, I'm a poker hero, man. I'm the next Phil Hellmuth. So I went up, and this was like a year to a year and a half into it. I was building up my stack. So I was like, oh man, what am I waiting for? So I went to the 20-40 table. 3 days, I was out.
Okay.
All the money that I made in a year and a half, those guys at the 20-40 table, these are poker players. 20-40 poker, man, is big. Those spots get big, dude. And I don't even know that it was necessarily that they were better poker players. It's that I wasn't psychologically ready to be handled at those. You know what I mean? They could get me out all the time. I'd be in the pot, and they would freaking raise it, and I'd be like, holy shit, I fold, right?
Mhm.
And I probably would have won the hand, right? Whereas at 1-3 poker, I would have stayed in that because I could afford 1-3 poker, right? So it's like the same type of psychology,
Yeah.
right? I probably lost because I wasn't ready for the size more than anything else. They were probably better poker players than me too, but really it was the size that probably got me out. So
So
3 days
similar to,
I was out.
yeah,
A year and a half
yeah.
I spent, and I was out in 3 days. They took all my money.
We see that with traders, though. We see that because there was actually something that happened in the UK recently where there was this fund, and it wasn't like an official fund in terms of like regulated, etc. It was just more so someone who liked trading, probably was a good trader, started raising capital probably from people he knew, and it just
Right.
became into this fund. And what happened was, what my understanding is anyway, because I wasn't involved or don't know anything in depth, but from the looks of it, it looks like, few years of them personally trading, maybe managing smaller capital, a couple 100,000, maybe up to 1 million, they were doing well. They could handle that. But then in a space of 12 months, it went from 1 million to like 20 million. And then it blew up overnight.
No, and there's also a big psychological difference between managing your money and managing other people's money, especially people that you know. Um, in some ways, obviously, managing your money is harder because, it's your money as opposed to OPM, right? If you lose OPM, okay, you feel bad, you let them down, but they can always just say you suck and pull their money and whatever. Whereas if you're managing your money and you lose, it's obviously a lot more painful. So on that side, that's harder. But people don't realize managing other people's money is also very hard, in particular when it's your friend and family.
Definitely.
Which is how everybody has to start, right? No big hedge funds giving you a bunch of money one day, right? You got to start with your friends and family. That psychologically is a big burden, man. You're talking to these people. These are your friends. These are your family. You're seeing them. Hey, how's the account doing? Oh, you making me any money? And they don't necessarily understand the game. You know what I mean? They just think, oh, you're a trader. You make big money. Go make me big money. Here's $100,000. Go make me big money. How we do this month? Oh, we lost 3%. What? I thought you were good at this, right? And it just starts, it's very difficult psychologically. This is also, to get into this old theme, like my clients, I have an advantage in that the clients that I have given me money for a very specific reason, right? So that is what my job is to do. If trend following and everything is having a massive run and I'm not making any money, they're not going to call me up and go, what the hell are you doing? You suck. My job is not to make money during that time. My job is to hopefully not lose very much money during that time. But that's not my game. I always look at it like, you're from London, but I always look at it like football. But I when I say football, I mean American football.
Yeah.
But also all sports will be this. Everybody on that team has a job, and I have a job on the team of my clients, right?
Yeah.
I can play defensive end, which you probably don't follow American football, but defensive end, you're on the end. And your job one of your jobs at least, is to keep the play inside.
Okay.
So that no one gets around the end.
Okay, yeah.
Keep it inside. And then the guys in the middle can make the tackle, right? You can try and be a hero, duck inside, get behind the line and make a tackle behind the line and make, Sports Center and be as the play of the game. But if you miss that and he gets around the end, there's no one to stop him. He's going down for the touchdown, right? My job is I have a job, and it takes a team. They all have to do their jobs for the team to have success over time. Any individual play, okay, you cut inside, you broke the rule, you made a great play, you're a hero. But over time, that's going to hurt you, right? One of these times, they're going to get around you and they're gone, right? It's the same thing. I have a job to do, and that's what I have to do. So that takes, again, a lot of the pressure away from my trading, right? Because that's my job.
Yes. Yeah. Because when you said OPM, just for the people at home, just in case, it's other people's money, right?
Right.
How helpful was that in terms of discipline then? In terms of, I'm sure there was elements, like you said, there's pros and cons and there's things you have to overcome.
Yeah.
One thing I'll quickly ask you in terms of, would you say it's a wise idea to try and avoid trading friends and family's money? I know it's like probably one of the first things you have to do, but
if you're looking to run a money management firm and you're looking to build a track record with any kind of real money, that's really the only way to do it. But it's not the only way. Running a prop shop nowadays is a way, but it's a very difficult way to do it, man. The psychology behind that is so hard. And like I say, you're trying to put every little small step together to increase your chances of success. That one decreases your chances of success, I believe. I've done it. And it's very, very hard psychologically. You're sitting there and, you're in a losing trade. You're like, oh, my God, my brother's going to kill me. You know what I mean? Or my best friend, he's going to hate me. And you know what I mean? You're going to cut And the point of this has nothing to do with the market,
Yeah.
and it has everything to do with what's going on up
Mhm.
here, right? So again, every little thing you can do to give you one step towards being successful helps, and that is a hard one.
Did you ever put expectations? So aside from friends and family, just generally, it might be even be at one of the funds or whatever it may be. Did you ever put expectations on yourself to perform? Because that's something I did once. I actually only once did I ever take money off someone I knew. It was only small capital, but the thing was like, okay, trade the small capital, get things going, then we'll increase it. And they never put pressure on me. They never even asked me like, how's this going? What's your plan? Like how, if we're down, like, oh my God, nothing like that. But I was putting pressure on myself to perform.
I still put pressure on myself, despite all this talk about, okay, my clients are aligned, we're all aligned, they know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I want to be as best as I can be, and I screw things up all the time. Even though I have a process that's very disciplined and all this and that, I still screw it up all the time, right? And it sucks. I put pressure on myself all the time. My expectations for myself, quite frankly, are to be the best trader that ever lived. Okay, so how can you ever get to that?
Mm-hmm.
You can't, right? So I try to be the best trader I can be, at least, and I screw that up all the time too. I still am not the best trader I can be because I screw things up all the time. I just screwed one up this week. Okay, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I always say what I do is I call my mommy when that happens because she pats me on the head and tells me she loves me and she doesn't care, right? That's all you can do. What are you going to do? You can cry, you know what I mean? But crying doesn't help. You can revenge trade, but that's only going to hurt you, right? So all you can do is somehow, this is where meditation, all that stuff helps. You just got to get over it and move on to the next one. That's all you can do. And it's so hard to do that, but that's all you can really do.
That's what I was going to ask you in terms of like, what was that process like? Because it's so interesting because it's like people are they're not going to be confused, but it's more so like people might sit there and think, okay, he's managing this much capital, this much track record, incredible trader. But then he said he's messing up all the time, but also he wants to be the best trader. That's his mindset, right? And with that will come some sort of like pressure potentially you put on yourself, which, as we know in trading, can be very bad, right? But as you said, like your process there was you can do all these things, probably have done these things in the past to learn that they're bad, but then your process there was like doing that meditation, sort of getting more introspective.
No, and I get to write this newsletter, so I get to get it off my chest. I get to write it down. I get feedback from people. I get all that too, which also helps. All these things kind of help.
It's more so like trying to unburden yourself and just try and, if in essence, if we boil it down, it's like just moving on, just make sure to move on.
It's just like everything in life, you know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to forgive yourself. We all do stupid things. You know what I mean? I don't care who you are. We've all done things we wish we haven't done. And you can let it affect you forever, right? In which case you're never going to get over it. Or you just have to give yourself permission to be a human being and to make mistakes and to make another mistake. You know what I mean? You're never not going to make any mistakes. There are things we can do in life to reduce our mistakes. But clearly, you're always going to make mistakes, be it in life or be it in trading. So you just have to sort of forget. I saw a great interview the other night with Serena Williams, who I think is, we could argue, the greatest women's tennis player that's ever lived, right? And she went through a period where she lost it. She was right at the top. She won 4 majors in a row and had to beat her sister to do it, who was her best friend, right? And did it. Very psychologically difficult. Her older sister, by the way, and then she went through a period where she lost it and she took time off and she wanted to find herself and this and that. And then she came back and she won the Australian Open. She wasn't even ranked at the time because she had been away for so long. And she wasn't supposed to win. She didn't really have the game. Her body wasn't really in the shape to be there. They went through all the Australian press. They were calling her fat and they were calling her this and that. When Serena got older, she got pretty big, right? But she came back and won the Australian Open. And she said, I got to the point where I had to give myself permission to be a champion again.
Wow.
And I think that's right. Give yourself permission to be a human being. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. It's okay. Get over it and then get better. I think that's what gets you better. Dwelling on it,
It's like an anchor that weighs you down.
yeah, it's not going to help,
Mm.
man. Just it's okay. Give yourself permission to make a mistake.
In terms of risk, it's a very interesting debate I've had over the last 6 episodes, 7 episodes. There's one particular trader who essentially says that he doesn't trade a risk just 1%. He uses dynamic risk. So it doesn't mean that he's risking 50%. It just means it's dynamic, dependent on the setup and how he feels,
Right.
etc. Speaking to Jack and reading Market Wizards, very similar notion. It seems like majority of traders who are having these big returns are doing more of a dynamic risk style. What are your thoughts in terms of risk? Is it something that you fix?
I think it
dynamic?
depends on your style
Mhm.
of what you're doing. For me, all my trades are supposed to look exactly the same.
Mhm.
And what I have found is I have a long track record of my trades now and a long record of my trades. I don't have the ability to know which one's going to work better than the other. I don't have any A+ setups.
Mhm.
They're all A+ setups as far as I can tell. They're all the same trade. But I have never been able to find anything, and I have tested it, believe me. I've had quants go through it and all this. That's going to tell me which one has a higher probability of working.
Okay.
So therefore, I have to treat them all the same. So I risk the same amount on every trade.
Okay.
And I have actually found the ones that a lot of times the ones that I think in my mind have the least chance of working are the ones that end up working the best.
Yeah.
And the ones that I think have the greatest chance of working are the ones that end up being the losers.
Mhm.
So based on that, I can't let my emotions get into it and be like, this is an A+ setup, so I'm going to triple my size.
Mhm.
So for me, based on my style, all my trades get sized the same. All my risk is the same on every trade. For other people, depending on what they're doing, these guys are always saying, oh, if it's an A+ setup, then I'll make it more size. Okay, I don't know what an A+ setup is.
Mhm.
Everything, I like to believe all my trades are an A+ setup.
Yeah.
They're not, as it turns
Well,
out.
yeah.
But going into it, that's
Mhm.
what I believe they are because they all look exactly the same.
Exactly. It's like that common quote that people say where they say, if you knew that wasn't going to be an A+ set, why would you get into it?
Exactly.
It has
Why
to
would you not only trade the A+ setups? I don't get that, but
yeah.
but people do. If that's how they do it, I'm not here to argue with what they do, and then therefore they should do it. If it's an A+ setup versus a B setup, then yeah, size more.
Would you say then you're more of a mechanical trader in the sense that, you are someone who doesn't really take into account intuition or anything like that? It's more so like, is my setup here? And this is my risk.
I like
this is
to
my take
believe
profit.
that. I like to believe it. That's
Mhm.
what I try to do.
Yeah.
But there's still probably a little bit of that goes on with
Mhm.
certain things. Like I will hedge some stuff sometimes
Okay.
because of intuition. It's not 100% intuition. It's also looking at the positioning, looking at how markets are trading, listening to where people are doing things. And it might not be fully set up for
Mhm.
me to short this thing. But if I'm long a bunch of things that are correlated to this thing, and this thing is close to set up to be a short, I might take it just to hedge. Like I said, I'm pretty risk averse. I hate downside. So I'm pretty risk averse. I will kind of use intuition for that type of stuff sometimes. And listen, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't,
Yeah.
And again, the guys on the Discord call me out on it because I show them all my trades. Like, well, what are you doing there? You say that all you do are these one type of trades, and this ain't one of those trades, Now you're telling us that you hedge sometimes, and I'm like, well, I'm trying to show you everything I do. I'm trying to be out there and show you everything I do. So
Mhm.
you're right, and maybe I've never really thought of it, but I guess I do this sometimes, And what you'll see, and what they have seen, is that sometimes that helps, and sometimes it doesn't. So it doesn't really have that much an effect on my returns over time, but it does have an effect on me feeling
Yeah.
that I can sleep tonight.
Do you think, in terms of being a trader, like you're always going to have that room for human error? I don't think there's.
Without a
We're
doubt.
human, right?
Without a doubt. No question about it.
Yeah. So I think that
We
whole.
try to reduce that as much as we can.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, that's who we are, right? We're going to have those moments. And I think it boils back to what we just said in terms of, one, being aware of it. So you accept the fact that that's going to take place. So it's not like this huge shock that took place.
Right.
But also accepting and allowing yourself to recognize, okay, that was a mistake. I move on. I learn from that. I try and reduce that and move forward. One question I just wanted to ask you very briefly, though, as well, is in terms of markets, I know you mentioned obviously you started off with the Hong Kong markets,
Mhm.
but like what do you look at now? So you're looking for these, where the traders are just fully on one side. Are you looking at a variation of markets or
I trade all the U.S.
okay,
futures markets.
nice,
I trade in the ones that have liquidity.
yes,
So there's about 37 markets
Mhm.
that I participate in. And yeah, I look at the positioning that's released by the CFTC every week, the Commitments to Traders reports.
Yep.
It gives me the positioning. And I'm looking for, these super crowded markets to then look for a place where I get market confirmation to go the other way.
I love that.
But it helps in a lot of different things, I can tell you. People are like, oh, I don't trade futures. What do I give a crap about this? I'm telling you, this stuff helps in a lot of different ways. Like, even if you're just trading stocks, for example, let's say that this stuff is saying people are super short stocks. Okay, well, we know that a large percentage of a stock's move is a function of the underlying market, right? So if people are super short stocks, maybe you can feel more comfortable getting long a stock. Well, what about if people are super short stocks and they're also super short oil? Well, maybe it's a good idea to get long an oil stock, right? If the markets are have a good chance of rebounding and going the other way. Or they're super short stocks and they're super short metals. Well, maybe buying a mining stock could be a good risk reward, right? And then there's the opposite too, right? Okay, so now I'm long all these mining stocks. Well, people are getting super long metals here. So maybe I should roll out of mining stocks and roll into other stuff. We had a thing recently where for the first time in a very long time, the most crowded thing out there was short the Russell. People had finally given up on that. And literally the first week of July is the first time we found this in the COT, was people were maximum short Russell. Well, I went into my retirement account, which I'm not supposed to touch. I pay a guy to not let me touch it, right?
He's fired.
But I called him up and I said, listen, I want to roll a big portion of this into Russell stuff. And he's like, are you freaking crazy? I said, yes, I am crazy. I'm not saying get me out of the market. I know I'm not allowed to do that. I purposely pay this guy to not let me do that.
Mhm.
I said, I just want to put like 20, 25% of it into the Russell stuff. And I did that. Look, I'm talking about something that worked. Not everything works.
Mhm.
But in this particular case, it worked. And it had nothing to do with trading futures. I just rolled into Russell and look what the Russell did in July. And this was just strictly based on the positioning. Now, it's also positioning and it's also a read. I listen to what people are saying. I listen to what people who I think are horrible at this are saying. I listen to what the consensus is saying,
Mhm.
and it's certainly switched. It's no coincidence that this showed up on the positioning stuff, because I could hear it in the financial news that the psychology was switching. They all wanted to chase the laggards the whole first half of the year. They gave up on that idea in July, and that showed up in the positioning. And that helped me. So if you were like, for example, in this, and again, this is something that worked. I can talk about hundreds of trades that haven't worked, but if you were looking to be long the market, this would have told you that the place to be long would have been the Russell area, that type of stuff, whether you were trading an individual stock or whether you're, we had people on my stuff based on that Russell thing. And based on this one guy that we love to fade because he's wrong so much of the time, it's almost statistically impossible. He was getting short suddenly.
Yeah.
The banking index, the Russell part of the banking index, where all this commercial real estate supposedly is going to bankrupt all. And we had guys based on that combination that bought that banking index, and the thing ripped, man. It was up like 15% like in a week,
Mhm.
So, and that's great. I don't trade that stuff, but people use this stuff for stuff like that too. So it can all be, I think, help people's process a lot.
Definitely. No, definitely. Well, you've already highlighted it and really shown it. And it's opened my eyes. I've really, really, really enjoyed this interview. And I wish we had more time. Like 2 hours has never gone by faster, I think. And everyone at home, make sure you drop a comment as well of your biggest takeaway from this episode. There'll be links in the description for Jason. So make sure you check those out as well. And there'll be other episodes on screen. The Day Trading Show, as always. Until next time, everyone, take care.